Andrew Marr asked yesterday whether or not there were limits to free speech. And there was a very interesting debate about whether or not people are scared. What on earth is going on up here? Whether or not people are scared about speaking out. Well, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, clearly is not. And he leads the way. And it's very impressive, really. When challenged for detail, which isn't his job, he said things like, if you say so, and then, well, I think it's the journalists who have to explain where they got their bits from. It's the journalists who have to explain their sources. This idea of royal insider, a source, when actually those sources were phone hacks. And to say that something is already in the press associations, to say that something has already been announced, is not the same as focusing on the detail. And I hope the barristers, I don't have a great opinion of barristers. In my experience, law is about people who have good memories. In fact, I always wished that I'd done law rather than theology at university. I find law absolutely fascinating, and certainly when I was younger, I had a much better memory than I do now. Now I find I remember things in odd chunks at odd times, so not always when I need to. But I don't think that the majority of lawyers that I've had dealings with don't seem to be able to grip the detail, but they do seem to be able to remember things. So let's hope that that Prince Harry has been briefing them carefully about detail, because all they need to do is demonstrate that one fact could not have come from a royal insider, a flunky, a sister. Just one fact had to come from a private conversation that was intercepted, a private voicemail that was intercepted. Just one fact, and the case is blown out of the water for the Daily Mirror, and for the and for that particular group. And I don't think that will be too hard to establish. Owen Jones, who is a tremendous wag. Again, I don't really share his political views, but I do share his enthusiasm, and I love the fact that he draws a distinction between news and opinion. Now, what I offer is opinion, backed up by a few facts, but it's basically opinion. And I make no apology for my opinions. If you want news, go to the BBC, or better still, go to Reuters. Reuters is at least fairly bland. The BBC has got agenda. Has got agenda. It's not pure news at all, as Owen Jones pointed out today. So he was all praise for the Duke of Sussex as a turncoat, as a sort of, I thought he was practically going to call him a crypto-socialist, like Tony Benn, the new Prince Harry. He said that the testimony that Harry gave was so rare, absolutely, a unique experience of behind the scenes, shifting the curtain, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. It's not surprising that the king was very firm that Harry should not go into court, that this was a brood of vipers and that he was likely to damage the relationship with the press. And the king and the courtiers have gone so far to appease the tabloids, to the extent that they will give invitations to tabloid editors rather than to the BBC or to solid newspapers like the Times. So Prince Harry has a good reason to despise the tabloid press. He blames them, rightly, for his mother's death and for the racist abuse of his wife. And I think again, you have to divide the attacks on his wife into two forms. Number one is the racism, and number two is the I think the quite justifiable questions which are raised by the Sussexes' links to Netflix and so on. Democracy fails, the Prince says, when the press fails to scrutinise and instead gets in bed with the system. And he observed yesterday that the government has hit rock bottom, as indeed has the press. Absolutely. And the effort to plant stories with the tabloids. No. Owen Jones points out very clearly, the job of the press is to inform and educate. That is what democracy is about. But it isn't doing that. Instead, it's promoting an agenda. That is propaganda. And the reality of that world, the reality of that world that the tabloids present is a fiction. It's not true. It's something which is contrived to be thrust onto the reading public. Not that there's very many words in the tabloid press. A picture says everything, and, you know, the paparazzi are posed and poised for their next pictorial story. It's vicious, but our propaganda is filtered through newspapers and through the visual media, which vilifies the targets that the system wants vilified. It's vicious. Jones points out the vicious campaigns against benefit claimants, the vicious campaigns against migrants, which dominate the pages of The Sun, The Mirror, The Express. It doesn't matter which political colour, which political flag they seem to be flying, they're all at it. Thrusting propaganda onto us. They might as well go and work in Russia. He instances one particular person, James Forsyth, who has worked for The Sun, The Times, The Spectator. So he doesn't care whether he's working for something respectable or whether he's just working for filth. He has his hand in the toilet bowl and no one's flushed. And his wife is Allegra's Stratton. His wife is the person who was talking cosily and carelessly about the fictional Christmas parties and then had to resign. This guide for Boris Johnson, this twit, who had been at Oxford. In fact, I think I knew her. And I'm sort of embarrassed about these people. They have more to offer than just toadying to a system which is clearly on the rocks. We need opinion pieces now, more than ever. We need people to start dissecting the news rather than just simply toadying to the particular news stories which the system wants out. No, we need people giving their opinion, because that's all we can now rely on. We can't rely on the news because it's been so filtered through the system. And when you look at so many of the national press, and indeed the BBC, opinion is presented as fact. Nobody questions Braverman or Rishi Sunak when they talk about getting the numbers of migrants down. The numbers of migrants is not so high, actually. Nobody questions the idea about the need to stop the boats. The question is how? What are your resources? The question should be why. That should be the first question. But nobody asks that question. I don't understand why not. Because we are so subjected to the system. The only reason we should be stopping the boats, and I don't understand why a newspaper hasn't said this, why the BBC hasn't said this, is because the boats are endangering people's lives. And there are that there are very clear ways to stop the boats. We put a consulate on the shore of France, but nobody's proposing to do that. Instead, we're proposing simply to gift France more money. Absurd. Absurd. Why? Why? Because France isn't going to take further responsibility. And finally, the thought of Piers Morgan, which drives this court case, and drives Prince Harry. The thought of Piers Morgan and his band of vipers earwigging into my mother's affairs, his unjustified behaviour, his intimidation, as editor of the Daily Mail from 1999 to 2004, and now as a bigwig on breakfast television. So you wake up, people wake up to Piers Morgan. I can't think of anything worse. You know, and Piers Morgan, in turn, has said today that he's not prepared to take lessons in privacy invasion from the Duke of Sussex. Well, there you are. There you are. I must say, of course, we don't have to wake up to Piers Morgan now, do we? Because he got sacked. We can turn him on or turn him off on, is it GB News or TV Talk? I can't remember which one it is. One of those small programs he's on, or he may be on something else. I cannot remember, but certainly he's not far from the TV, but far enough so that we can at least have our breakfast in peace. If we want to turn on the television, we get Richard Madeley, who is Piers Morgan's substitute, I suppose. I think Richard Madeley's attempt to redefine and reinvent himself is a bit of a disaster, really. He was so much better as the hand puppet of Judy, and at least there he had some credibility. Now I don't think he has very much. I came up against Richard Madeley years ago, well, not so many years ago, in 2019, when he was really quite rude about my cat and rude about me. And his defence was that he'd been told to do it. Well, that says it all, doesn't it? If you're told to do something and you do it, then it's not your fault. And that really is the get-out clause for phone hacking and for all the scurrilous behaviour by the tabloids. It's still wrong. And that sort of excuse would not have got somebody off the hook in the Nuremberg trials, would it?